I usually do the bulletin format for each Sunday, and Nancy said to me, you don't have a consider these thoughts. And it was because I didn't have room to put it. So I'm going to put it there without it being identified. It's important for us, I think, to pay attention to the history of the United Methodist Church, and in particular, the women who were just stupendously involved in the formation of the leadership and of offering the kinds of witness that is so crucial for each of us. You will remember that Susanna Wesley was the wife of John Wesley, and Susanna Wesley had a total of 19 children. It's amazing. She also taught each of the children, the boys and the girls, Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. She also educated them in science and all kinds of other subjects that they might not have gotten and received in a school setting. She led, when her husband had an argument with her around who should be the king, and he decided and announced to her that if we can't have the same king, because she supported a different person, he supported another person, we can't have two beds, so he left for 6 months. So she proceeded to take care of the children, take care of the household, take care of all the other things, including began to teach the children in a Bible study. Her Bible study was held in the afternoon on Sundays, and after a while, the attendance in that Bible study exceeded the number of people who showed up for worship on Sunday morning. She was just a remarkable woman. In so many ways, it gave to John Wesley an awareness of, I said it was his wife, it was his mother. She gave to him a sense of the role and the place of women in faith and in the church. Very early on, John Wesley encouraged one of the first women who was then authorized within the Methodist Church to begin to teach the Bible lessons or Sunday school. So in 1770, which is a total of 14 years before the Methodist Church was originally formed, and a woman by the name of Mary Evans was identified as and authorized and encouraged to lead classes in Philadelphia, because there was a strong movement of the Methodist movement in then were the colonies. In 1768, 2 years before that, the woman by the name of Barbara Heck encouraged Philip Embry to begin to preach. He was a lay preacher. And she then, in New York, decided we needed to have a building for the Methodist Society that was developing. And so she designed the John Street Chapel in New York City. And there is yet a building that identifies her exceptional work, Barbara Heck, in 1768. In 1787, 3 years after the Methodist Episcopal Church in the United States was formed, Wesley wrote to the pastors and the leadership of the church and said, I am authorizing Sarah Mallet, M-A-L-L-E-T, to be a preacher. It kind of wiped the male ministers out. They were up in arms and objecting to the decision he had made. But she then became the first identified Methodist minister authorized within the Methodist Church, 1787. Wisconsin, I think, can take some great pride in the fact that the first female ordained minister bishop served as the bishop of this conference. Marjorie Matthews, some of you may remember that name. She was the first female bishop ordained within the United Methodist Church. And since then, there have been numbers of very competent, capable, bright, and deeply faithful women who have been named to be pastors, ordained, and placed in churches. They have been called on to be leaders as district superintendents, and they have been called on and authorized to be bishops as well. Fascinating, it seems to me, that it took us really so long to recognize the strengths, not only in terms of their intellect, but the strengths in terms of their organizational skills and their deep, deep faith, to have them provide us with leadership. I am delighted for that. So consider this information and these thoughts. I want to share with you two scripture readings, and one of them coming from Deuteronomy, which is, I think, a fascinating statement in that early time within the Hebrew tradition. This is what Deuteronomy 32:18 says. You deserted the rock. The rock was the name given to Jesus, the rock which was identified as his strength, or given to God, his strength and his power. And you may recall it was Peter who was named the rock by Jesus. You have deserted the rock, says God to the people of Israel, who fathered you. You forgot the God who gave you birth. So on both levels, the birthing of the nation of Israel was understood as a gift from God, as well as the creating of the people. You have forgotten me. I who have fathered you, you forgot God who gave you birth. The other is a fascinating passage that comes, I think, from the Gospel of Luke, who identifies this very important comment. Jesus was talking to the people of Israel and to priests and to Pharisees, and he said to them, naming them all as Jerusalem, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you kill the prophets, you stone the messengers God has sent to you. How many times I wanted to put my arms around you, around all of the people, just as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would not come to me." I was given a wonderful parable of motherhood. I want to begin the service this morning, or the sermon this morning, if I may. And this parable talks about a mother who thought that the very moment that she was considering her day that day, that it was the best day she could ever have. Let me read this. The young mother set her foot on the path of life. "Is the way long?" she asked, and her guide said, "Yes, and the way is hard, and you will be old before you reach the end of it, but the end will be better than the beginning." But the mother was happy, and she would not believe that anything could be better than those years, so she played with her children and gathered flowers for them along the road and bathed with them in the clear stream, and the sun shone on them, and life was good, and the young mother cried, "Nothing will ever be better than this." The night came, and storms, and the path was dark, and the children shook with fear and cold, and the mother drew them close and covered them with her mantle, and the children said, "O mother, we are not afraid, for you are near. No harm can come The mother said, "This is better than the brightness of days, for I have taught my children courage." The morning came, and there was a hill ahead, and the children climbed and grew weary, but at all times she said to the children, "Oh, a little patience, and we will be there." So the children climbed, and when they reached the top, they said, "We could never have done this without you, Mother." And the mother, when she laid down that night, looked up to the stars and said, "This is a better day than the last, for my children have learned fortitude in the face of hardness. Yesterday I gave them courage. Today I shared with them strength." And the next day came. Strange clouds of darkened the earth, clouds of war and hate and evil. And the children groped and stumbled, and the mother said, "Look up, lift your heads to the light." And the children looked up and saw the clouds. Through the clouds, everything God offered glory. And it guided them and brought them beyond the darkness. And that night the mother said, "This is the best day of all, for I have shown my children God." The days went on, the weeks and the months and the years, and the mother grew old and suffered and was little and bent, but her children were tall and strong and walked with courage. And the way was rough. They lifted her, for she was light as a feather. And at last they came to a hill, and beyond that hill they could see a shining road, and the golden gate swung open. And the mother said, "I have reached the end of my journey, and now I know that the end is better than the beginning, for my children can walk alone, and their children after them." And the children said, "You will always walk with me, Mother, even when you have gone through the gates." And they looked and watched her as she went alone, and the gates closed after her, and they said, "We cannot see her, but she is with us." A mother like ours is more than a memory. She is a living presence. This was written by Temple Bailey sometime between 1885 and 1953. Thank you for the gift. There's a wonderful hymn in the hymn book that you have that's called "Faith We Sing." And the songbook offers a balanced metaphor or a imagery associated with God. This is how the first verse reads. "Mothering God, you gave me birth in the bright morning of the world. Creator, source of every breath, you are my rain, my wind, and my sun." It goes on to identify Christ as mothering new life, as the Spirit mothering faith. And the idea that indeed the Mother God image is one that is oftentimes misunderstood in our understanding of God. We have so often been inclined to think of God as Abba, Father. It's more recently that some very, very talented and gifted women theologians and biblical scholars have come to discover that there's another term that's been used by the early church to identify God, and is Abum, which is Mother God. Indeed, there needs to be a balance. The word Elohim in the Hebrew, which is the first name given to God in Genesis, Elohim, which when writing, writers oftentimes make use of both male, masculine terms and feminine terms. The male term for God used by the Hebrews in the writing of "in the beginning God created" was a male term. But interestingly enough, when they dug deeper into the translations of the term, the Spirit of God hovered over the water, that hovering became clearly understood as feminine nature, and that indeed the hovering of the Spirit of God, Ruach Elohim, which is a Hebrew term which has a feminine connotation. Please be with me on this, because I think it's important to pay attention to the fact that mothering and fathering is not at all unique only to us, but it is unique also to our God, who gives to us all the wonders of life that comes from birth. A birth which really, in our own way, takes both of us to give birth to a child. The Spirit of God and Elohim, the Father, the masculine. I want to share a couple of passages again with you that I think, not at all unintentionally, I think were used to illustrate the kind of God who identified with the world in both male and female terms. Consider the passage again in Deuteronomy 32, verse 18. You deserted the rock, which is the male term for God, given to him for his strength and his power, who fathered you. Now keep in mind that in Hebrew Jewish tradition, fathers produced children, not mothers. Fathers were the only ones who could produce a child. The mothers were merely I guess you could say, the incubators of this life that was being produced by the father. And at birth, she would produce then a son or a daughter. So the idea that the rock or God fathered us, but you forgot God who gave you birth. The birthing is not an insignificant commentary, it seems to me, for indeed, not only are we given life by God, but we are birthed by God in a wonderful and precious way, because we become part of life, part of existence. And then as we move into the New Testament, we clearly understand that new birth, which, you remember the conversation, you need to be born again. Well, how can I go back into my mother's womb? That's impossible. And the person said, Jesus said to him, you who are so wise, that you know everything, but you don't know anything about the birthing of God through the Holy Spirit. You need to be birthed again, renewed, reborn as a new person. The other passage then is a powerful one that comes from, again, from Deuteronomy. It's in the 11th verse of the 32nd chapter. As an eagle stirs up her nest, spreading her young wings to protect her young children. The eagle is perceived here as God. God brings to this nest of his of our earth, the place where we live, that presence, and stirs us up, stirs up our spirit, so that indeed we then are cared for by this God. Very clearly, the mother eagle, God hovers like that eagle over the earth, and our nest provided by God, and a caring and loving God, a caring and loving parent, offering us protection and rescue. And then in Luke, again, I say this wonderful passage, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, O you people of Israel, O you priests, O you clergy, O you lawyers, your prophets and others, you kill the prophets. You stone the messengers God has given to you. How many times have I wanted to put my arms around you, just like a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you would not let me. It is Jesus who then says God identifies powerfully the desire to bring peace, to bring wholeness, to bring reconciliation to all people, and does it by identifying the nature of the mother who agonizes over her children, agonizes over their behaviors, agonizes over leaving them from her home, and yet prays for them that they will do well and remember the lessons they have learned. I think back to my own experience in life. I know that I am part of the United Methodist Church because that's where my mother insisted we go. It was the Methodist Episcopal Church when I was born, and I was part of that congregation from birth, baptism, right on to today. It was my mother who made sure we went to church every Sunday. She made sure that we got involved in our youth group. She made sure that we participated in Sunday school. She made sure, even on a Sunday when she stayed home to wash the laundry, and took my brother and myself to camp at Asbury Acres down near the Watoma area. It was my mother who strongly led my father, who was kind of casual about church, but there was no question but what he would go there with her and with us. I'm grateful for the other women who mothered me, who offered support for me. I have an aunt that was my mother's husband, my mother's brother's wife, Aunt Celia, who was Roman Catholic, who went to church every Sunday or on Saturday. She was deeply devoted. My uncle would go with her. He never did stop being a Methodist, but he would attend with her. She was a wonderful lady, never gave birth to children, but gave birth to us in terms of our love for family and our love for the gathering of families, the love for order in life, the love for gathering together with neighbors, caring about those who were ill and who were struggling. Wonderful person she was. I think of the woman who led our youth group when I was a teenager at the United Methodist Church in Columbus, Wisconsin. She was a photographer with her husband, and they devoted hours and hours and hours of time with our youth group. It was the strongest youth group, I think, in our entire conference. Out of that came desire to have a youth Sunday. I remember that we played our instruments for a Good Friday early morning service in the cemetery at 7 a.m. And I remember playing my tuba, which got stuck because it got cold enough that the valves stuck. It was she who encouraged us to be part of the ongoing District United Methodist group, youth group. And it was women in the church who were supportive and nurturing of us as young people. I must say, I am grateful for you, each of you. I'm grateful for the history of Methodist women throughout the ages of this denomination. Grateful for you as members of this church who witnessed powerfully as united women in faith on a daily basis. We are grateful for you, for your gifts, for your talents, for your strength, for your courage, and for your deep faith. God bless each of you. May this be a day that you remember your God, who not only fathers you, but in so many ways mothers you in giving you life, giving you faith, and supporting and nurturing you throughout the days and years of your life. Happy Mother's Day to each of you. God bless each of you. Amen.